immigrants fell under the spell of the American legend that the streets of America were all paved with gold. When they got here, they found out three things.
The streets were not paved with gold.
The streets were not even paved.
They were supposed to do the paving.
Whatever else she may be, America does offer the chance to work hard at work worth doing. But let me tell you how it all began.
Ah, yes, how it all began.
His name, Christopher Columbus. The date, 1453. The Turks had cut off commerce between the East and the West, depriving Europe of the Asian spices, among other things.
We had to find a way to bypass Turkey and reach the Spice Island of Indonesia by sea. Face it, I didn't live without pepperoni eggs this morning.
One man, Columbus, had faith that a new trade route could be found. He believed he was providentially chosen to do it.
After more than 20 years searching for a royal benefactor, he finally set sail under the flag of Spain with 3 small ships and a crew of 40 men.
On October 11, 1492, Columbus sighted the mainland of Asia. He thought. He never knew that he had not touched the Orient, or that he, Christopher Columbus, had stumbled onto the New World.
A few years after James became King of England, some Christians called separatists decided to form their own church. Every week they met privately for worship. King James, upset by this religious rebellion, moved to have them punished, some by imprisonment, others by hanging.
I recall some rulers like that as well. Seems they only thought there were 2 ways to do things, their way and the wrong way. Of course, some said that about me as well.
The separatists moved to Holland in order to worship God as they pleased, but they were still unhappy. They wanted religious freedom, but in a place where they could train their children in English ways. King James forbade their re-entry into England, but suggested that there was a new British colony across the Atlantic that needed settlers.
With borrowed money, they hired a small ship called the Mayflower, named themselves Pilgrims, and sailed from London toward the New World.
What faith those brave souls must have had. A few people meeting in a simple home church, wanting to be free. To them, freedom was like a holy light. May it ever be. So help us God.
Of independence that gave us our freedom, but it took the Constitution to give us our nation. In 1787, a year after the American Revolutionary War, a constitutional convention was called, but it seemed the delegates couldn't agree on anything.
Every discussion was punctuated with gossip, wrangling, and shouted arguments without end. It seemed that we were destined to become 13 independent countries instead of 1 United States.
Why is it, do you suppose, that just when faith ought to have its finest hour, the frailty of human nature takes over? Even aboard ship, we had our doubters, the second-guessers, the would-be captains. More than once, mutiny was a very real possibility. Indeed, it is true. Getting strong-willed, capable people to agree on a unified course can sometimes be most difficult.
When it seemed that this great American dream might never happen, Benjamin Franklin, by then 81 years old, rose and said, "We need help. If a sparrow cannot fall without God's notice, is it probable that a nation can rise without his aid? I move that we pray."
Struck by this statesman's simple declaration of faith, the delegates adjourned and went home to think about it. And they did pray. When they returned in the fall of 1787, they wrote in one accord, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice history are the acts of another great American. Though only 25, the pressures of life were already putting wrinkles on the face of a young seamstress, Betsy Ross.
Every day, I watched for my husband to return. Like the wife of any soldier on active duty, I tried not to think about what could happen. My daily vigil was usually met with silence until one awful day when a letter arrived. I saw that the handwriting was not my husband's, and I trembled to open it. It was from his commanding officer and contained only 3 words: killed in battle. After that, every day became the same for me. I as much as moved into my attic and spent my time tatting lace and sewing hymns. It kept my mind busy enough anyway to not think about things I didn't want to think about. But life in that sewing room changed for me one day when a man came by who needed my help. He was General George Washington, and he asked me if I would help him design a flag for our new nation. Together, we drew and shaped and planned 6 white bands, 7 red stripes, a quarter of blue. The general then suggested stars with 6 points. Fearfully, but firmly, I had to disagree. There would be no 6-pointed stars on my flag. Why do you oppose it, he asked. My thoughts returned to that dreadful day and its awful letter. I told the general that the British stars had 6 points, and to the British I had lost my husband. Only 5-pointed stars were due. I said they were symbols of freedom. To that, even the general of the army could not object, and I began to make my flags.
Surely God must reserve an extra measure of blessing and honor for women so resolute in their faith, so loyal in their love, and so diligent in their service.
And as this widow of the war worked, the light began in her small sewing room